Welcome, my friend, to the groundbreaking podcast that will ignite a revolution within you. Get ready to embark on a wild and wonderful journey as we dive deep into the heart of kingdom culture. I'm your host, and I'm thrilled to walk alongside you on this awe-inspiring adventure. Picture this, an audacious blend of truth, laughter, and deep, unfiltered conversations that will rock your world and leave you hungry for more. Here, we don't shy away from the raw, the real, and the radical. No, my friends, we embrace it with arms wide open and hearts set ablaze. Our mission? To unleash a generation of godly leaders who will fearlessly transform every sphere of influence in society. We are talking about doing life and business for the kingdom. No more tiptoeing or playing small. It's time to rise up, to shine brightly, and to let the light of God's truth guide us on this epic journey. In each episode, we will delve into the depths of our souls, digging deep into the treasures of wisdom and revelation. Together, we will uncover the secrets to thriving in this ever-changing world while staying anchored in our true identity as sons and daughters of the Most High. We won't stop at the surface level. Oh no, my friend, we are ready to challenge the status quo and disrupt the norms. We will ask the tough questions, unravel the mysteries, and tear down the walls that hinder us from walking in the fullness of our purpose. With a touch of Lisa Bevere's fiery spirit, we'll sprinkle in stories of hope and redemption, triumph and overcoming, reminding you that greatness resides within your very core. So get ready to unleash the lioness or lion within you, for we are called to be fierce warriors and watchmen, unyielding in our pursuit of truth and righteousness. So, my dear revolutionaries and kingdom accelerators, strap on your boots, fasten your armor, and join us on this exhilarating ride. Kingdom Culture Revolution will equip you, empower you, and set your heart ablaze with a passion to bring heaven to earth. Together, we will turn the world upside down, leaving a legacy of godly leadership that will resonate throughout eternity. Are you ready to step into your destiny, to ignite the flame of purpose, and to join the revolution? Then get ready, my friend, for Kingdom Culture Revolution is about to ignite a fire in your belly. It's time to arise and let your light so shine before men. It's time to release the holy roar. I'm so glad you've joined us today for this compelling conversation with my friend Vona Johnson. Vona is living her more. She's an author, faith coach, and speaker who, after a successful 30-year career in affordable housing, felt called to leave the corporate world and help others live their God-given purpose, or their more. Through life experiences and scripture, her first book, A Different View, Start Living the Life Your Soul Longs For, shares why we are called to live our faith. Her second book, Equipped for More, 10 Essential Habits to Stop Your Doubts and Fear of Judgment so you can boldly live your faith, shares how to live it. She lives in Pierre, South Dakota with her husband, Steve, where she is honored to serve as a city commissioner. Some of her favorite things to do are reading, attending outdoor music festivals, riding in their 64 Ford Galaxy convertible, and producing her podcast, Longing for More. Join me as I welcome Vona today. So I started my new job this week.
How's that going?
Really, actually, I started it last week, I guess. It was last Tuesday.
Yep, I
And it's
remember
going
that.
really well. Yeah. It's not really something I wanted to do. It's something I felt like God was calling me to do. And I'm like, God, I don't even this is not what I want to do. I don't want to. And I had felt like for the longest time, he was telling me, you're not going to work outside the home. And then this came along after, turning in 50 to 60 resumes and applications over 6 months, and all the doors kept getting closed. And then this is the one thing that the door was open to, because I finally told God, I think I told you this last week when we met. Finally told God, I'm like, that's it. I'm not doing anymore. I'm not turning in any more applications. I'm not doing any more resumes. Like, if you want me to have a job, you're just going to drop it in my lap. Well, that's what he did. So, yeah, I feel like I just feel like he is in it. And I'm like, God, I don't even know why I'm here, but I know you're here and I know you're in this. And I'm okay with that. Right. So It has been good. A little boring. I had to study tax law yesterday, which was, I'm like, I don't like, I'm going to fall asleep. Seriously, literally, I'm going to fall asleep reading this. I feel like he's going to use it for something. Like it's a tool to have in my tool belt. I don't know. I don't know what. I don't know why, but I just feel him in it. And it's really cool to just be in that place of knowing that he has me there for a reason. And I don't need to know what that is.
I just, it's funny because when we get off here, I have a gal that I did an interview with, and we were in a group together. Maybe Justina, do you know Justina Ford?
Yeah.
Yeah. I had responded to one of her posts. She's got I don't know, a group thing coming up, and I just answered one of her questions, and forgetting that she's the one that'll come back and DM you and say, hey. And anyway, I don't know. I don't like Facebook groups. I don't like doing all of that, but it was like, you know what? Yeah, I'll do this for whatever reason. But it was so powerful because she, had us introduce ourselves, and then she came back and started asking questions. And when I was responding to her questions about what I'm doing with my, how am I monetizing my business and everything, my answer was, I would love to have this amount. This amount would be great. But honestly, I just want to be obedient. I want to be where God wants me to be. It's not about the money. And that peace in knowing that you're right where he wants you to be, that you don't need to worry about a thing, that he takes care of all of the details is so huge. And it took me years to get here, but I wouldn't do anything different if it didn't lead me here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that it's all about him, and we don't have to worry about all the things that the world tells us we have to worry about.
For sure. And that really is the big difference between that hustle culture and that operating from a place of rest. And I'm like you, it took me such a long time to get to that place because there was that compulsion, that need to generate income, right? And it needed to be done quickly because there were bills to be paid. But I look back over the last 7 years and I'm like, why was I so worried? Like, I still didn't really make what I wanted to make, and God still provided. He still took care of the details. And why did I let myself worry so much? Right? Like, how much time did I waste? Seriously.
All right. Yeah. No, and for me, I just feel like he has provided for us so abundantly, and that I'm just blessed to be able to do the work he's called me to do, and be in that place of rest, that place of peace, and just not have to worry about it. Just keep doing what he asks, and know that those are things that are beyond my ability. And honestly, I mean, I'm sure there are things I could be doing differently that could monetize the work that I do better. But I know that that if God wanted me to be $1 million author or $1 million coach, I would be, and I may be, but that's clearly not for this season or this place that I'm at, and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, I think that staying in step with him is so much more powerful and such a better place to be than striving to become that millionaire coach or millionaire author. Again, just in that being in that place of rest, like the toil and the struggle and the challenge and the hustle that you have to do. Not saying those are bad things, but yeah, I'm like you. I'm like I'm just, it's about contentment. Really, that's what it boils down to. Are you content with that which you have right now? And if you are, and if you think about scripture, David And Solomon, they didn't pray for riches. They prayed for wisdom, knowledge, and understanding and discernment to lead God's people and to steward what God had given them. And because that was the desire of their hearts, he gave them the wealth, the riches, the honor, in addition to the wisdom and the discernment, right?
Yeah.
So it really is that heart position, that posture.
Well, and for me, what comes up is, I talk about in my podcast, we're longing for more. And to me, that more that we long for is that peace and that fulfillment. And that's really, I mean, when we get to that point of contentment, of peace, whichever word you choose to use, and you feel fulfilled doing what you're doing, you are living your more, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's that walking, I think you just said walking in step with God and his will. I just did a beautiful interview with a friend of mine who released a book called The Capillaries of Christ. And it's all about how we are all part of, the body of Christ. And we all, if you think about how each one of the blood cells that are flowing throughout our body are doing their job, and if all of us did our job, like the blood cells do, how the body works beautifully, and the church will work beautifully, regardless of what denomination or background we have or anything, if we all just step into as well. It was a really great conversation, and I'm just excited that for him and his book and all the places that it will go, because God's really blessed his effort. And but yeah, it's, when you think about it, if we all just did God's will in each moment, the world would be like heaven, right?
Mm-hmm. That's such a beautiful picture to think about the body of Christ being at that level of unity where everything functions together, works together in perfect harmony, right? Like the blood vessels are pushing the blood through the heart. The heart is pumping to keep the brain functioning. Like just imagine if we all actually functioned in that manner. We were so focused on doing God's will and being obedient and fulfilling his call in our lives that we're just in sync. And it's not, and that really, honestly, that is what I've learned over the last year. That's how God works. When I am focused on him, on doing his will and staying in his plan, I don't have to, and I keep coming back to that word strive. I don't have to strive. Like I even think about last fall, I knew I needed to start eating healthier. I knew I needed to start drinking more water. I knew I needed to start exercising more because I'm 45. I have a 5-year-old. My youngest is 5. And I'm like thinking, when he's 15, so 10 years from now, I'm going to be 55. Am I going to be able to keep up with him? And I knew if I didn't change something, I wouldn't be able to. Like I wouldn't be healthy enough or strong enough to be able to run to his baseball games, his football games, whatever that might be when he gets there. And so I just started praying. I'm like, Lord, I know that my body is your temple. I know I need to take better care of it. Can you help me do that? And it wasn't like I had to intentionally go, okay, I'm going to work out on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday from 7 a.m. to 7:30. It was just, as I kept focusing on my body as God's temple and I need to take better care of it, God would inspire me to go for a walk at 3:00 in the afternoon. God would inspire me. Like he would give me this craving for water. He would give me this sudden urge to, like, the tiredness. Like I would get sleepy at 8:00 and be ready for bed at 9. Like it just happened. Things just flowed. I didn't have to be intentional. And I know that's very much against what the world says, right? The world says you have to change your thoughts. You have to change the way that you do things. You have to set your intentions. I'm like, my intention is to be obedient to God. And that in and of itself is enough to make everything else fall into place. And I just think it's such a cool experience and a cool lesson to have learned.
Well, and I thank you for that. I think we touched on that last week when we talked, but it was a huge reminder for me because that's where I need to be again. It's just that leaning into him for that and not trying to do it on my own accord, right?
Yeah.
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 That's
And when
good.
I think when
Good for you.
we depend on our own strength, like it for me anyway, it's so much harder. It
Mhm.
is so much harder because I am so focused on, okay, I have to work out today. Well, then inevitably something happens. The kids need to run here or there, and I don't get it in. And then I'm beating myself up because I didn't do my workout today, or I didn't get enough sleep because the 5-year-old woke me up in the middle of the night, right? And then I'm beating myself up, which takes the focus off of God, right?
Yeah, I love
So, and
that.
I'm not saying by any means I'm perfect. Like I still have days where it is a struggle. Um, but more often than not now, it's so much easier. Tell me a little bit about where you are right now and the vision that God has given you.
Right now, I am in this place, and we've touched on it a couple of times in the conversation already, but I'm in this place of peace. I am seeking God's will. I'm in his word, and I'm feeling compelled to help others realize that that can be for them too, that they can have peace and fulfillment, that the more that our souls are longing for is not more money, more prestige, more self actualization, all of that. It's more of what God has to offer us, and that ability to share truth. Our world is so messed up and so confused and in chaos. And I'm learning that what God is calling me to right now is to reach out to Christian leaders, and particularly those that are in public service. So whether they're, a teacher or in government work, maybe they're a city official or an elected official, maybe it's somebody in legislature, at the church, any kind of public service, because that's kind of an area that there isn't a lot of coaching. People are just kind of out there, and I feel like God has, he led me through my career in government, and I've, I've been a leader in the church, not as a ordained minister or anything like that, but just serving on different boards. And now I'm a leader in my community, and I feel like God is saying, show others how they can use me, God, to lead and to bring others into that confidence and that ability to share truth. So I'm creating a membership to bring people together so that they can get encouragement and support. I'm a published author. I'm a master certified life coach. I feel like the credentials are all there. I'm just now stepping into a new phase in making it a place that's safe and affordable and not overwhelming, because so much that's out there is just like, a flood of information, and people don't have time for that. We're all too busy. And so I want to make it, easy to access, easy to listen to, easy to participate in, but meaningful. And that's really important to have us be able to engage in conversations that are difficult and not shy away from them, not be confused about what's true and what's not, because God's really clear about that. But to have that confidence to engage and share truth.
Amen. I think those conversations are especially important. Like in our modern era, we've lost so much of that personal connection and the ability to communicate effectively. So I think that is super powerful, super important. It's kind of a lost art, it seems like.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're afraid to engage in conversations because somebody's going to be offended, or somebody's going to lash back, or make us feel little, because of course, the world will tell non-believers that anybody that is foolish enough to follow that ancient book isn't worthy of their time, right? And of course, it's
Mm,
just completely backwards. And so I feel like the world has drifted away from God's truth. They've bought off on the lie that it is an ancient book and isn't relevant. And I want to help people see that that's absolutely not true, and that everything we need is written in that book. And it's not me and my wisdom, it's God and the wisdom that's there. So it's not that I'm teaching or preaching, it's that I'm helping people create habits that will allow them to be in the word more often, to be in prayer more often, to just sit and listen to what God has to say and speak over our lives, and then start practicing those habits of faith, be able to forgive, to be able to be grateful for the things that we have, to be content, to be at peace, to be present with the people in front of us, all of those things. So to me, it's just helping equip people for more. That's the name of the second book, right? Is, that my first book is a different view, how we look at life from a different perspective than what the world does. My second book is helping equip people to live that life that God and has. He has a plan for every one of us. He's given each and every one of us gifts and talents to help us fulfill our specific purpose. It can be anywhere along the spectrum. There is no one has a job too small or a job too large. He'll help every one of us fulfill the purpose he has for us. But we have to lean into him, and we have to trust him. And that's something the world doesn't want us to know or do.
Mm-hmm. And I really think we need to be having more of these conversations, right? Like, instead of, there's a quote, it's something along the lines of, it's not about who is right, it's about what is right. And these conversations that we need to be having, like, it shouldn't be about who is right. It should be about what is right. Like, what is coming up in this conversation that is true and just and pure, right? As opposed to, everybody has an opinion, right? And if we can have conversations based on basic truths, I think we can have more open conversations. And there's a point here about, what is the word I'm looking for? There's a lot of it going on, right? So, like, a lot of censorship, because we have these varying opinions, these differing opinions.
Cancel culture.
Yes, cancel culture. And then we've also got the, what is it called? It's where we're accepting all
Tolerance.
these different, yes, this blanket tolerance, yes. But it only applies to certain sectors. Right. Why can't we be having these open conversations, these honest conversations, without getting into a bickering match or an opinion, like battling on the opinion? Let's find the truths, let's find the facts, and then let's develop kingdom solutions for those problems. Like, that's where I want to go with what I'm doing.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. But we need to have confidence, and we need to have courage, and we need to be able to be bold to speak up. And I really feel that Satan has been really successful in causing people who know truth, or at least have a stirring in their heart to understand truth. He's come at them so hard with just this anger and this cancel culture and all the things that people are afraid to speak up, because someone's going to not like them, or unfriend them, or all the things. And it breaks my heart, because I know people personally whose children have completely walked away, and they don't even know why. I suspect, based on the parents that I know, and I know that their faith, I suspect that their children have been caught up in the lies of the world, and are disassociating themselves from their parents who are believers. And how heartbreaking is that? And it's just a sign of our times, where we completely cancel, is the right word. We completely cancel the people who don't believe what we believe or think the way we think. And we need to, well, first of all, we need to, some of those of us who do believe and are feeling compelled to speak out, we need to know that we need to have that discernment to know that there are times when we just bite our tongue and we don't say a word. We and Marty and I talked about this in my podcast interview this week about how we need to have the humility to know that there might be times when we just say, I don't agree with you on that. Hopefully we can have that conversation someday, and then stop. God doesn't need us to fix all the problems in the world. He doesn't really even need us to defend him. But he doesn't need us at all, but we can be his hands and feet, and we can show love, and we can accept people who are totally against him and show them love and help them see that there is a better way. But when we shout at people and get angry because they don't agree with us, nobody's going to be won over to Christ by being yelled at, right? So we need to learn the fruit of the Spirit. We need to be gentle. We need to be kind. We need to turn the other cheek. All of the things that the Bible tells us. When we get in there and we start being empowered and emboldened by the words that are in the Bible, then we can speak truth because we know that it is God's infallible truth.
I agree. I think discernment is so important. A lot of the conversations I've been privy to, a lot of the problem from my perspective, my opinion, is legalism, which opens a door for that condemnation and that shaming. And we're not showing the love of Christ when we are behaving in that manner. It's not our place to judge, right? And scripture tells us that sin is equal in God's eyes. So like a little white lie is just as offensive to God as a murder.
Right.
So for me, a lot of my perspective has shifted in that regard because I'm like, who am I to judge someone else when I lied about my weight to the doctor the other day? Like the doctor's not gonna know I did it, but it's an example, right? Like you can't lie to the doctor. They're gonna put you on the scale as soon as you walk in the door.
Boy, that was really foolish.
But just as an example, like little white lies that seem insignificant and no one's going to get hurt by it is just as offensive to God as someone who goes out and murders somebody else, or someone who's addicted to drugs or addicted to porn, or any number of sins that we can participate in on a daily basis. So that legalism that brings the condemnation and the shame, like we need to be having these conversations. And I'm so glad that God's opened the door for us to have this today.
Yes. What I like to remind people is, and I talk about it in a different view, and that is that we don't know that the person across that table that we're having the conversation with, or that we're, wherever they are, that person that we're disagreeing with, that is persecuting you or another Christian, right? We don't know that isn't Saul, the next Saul. And that God won't use us as we reflect his light, as we shine his light, for them to see truth and become Paul. So we don't get to, or we should not shut people out, because if they see God through us and change their life, then we've accomplished God's will. And again, if we're being ugly and, so I'm like one of those, and I understand that there's a point, but like, I don't believe in protests. I don't believe in going out and doing some of those, because I don't know that they serve a purpose. And especially when it is going to ignite, rioting and all of that, because it just escalates to a point that is not serving a purpose. I really believe we're going to change the hearts and minds of those who are against God's will and accomplishing God's purpose by one-on-one conversations, getting to know them, developing relationships, and helping them see God through us in our love. And I just don't think that, the anger and the violence that's out there is going to accomplish what we think it's going to accomplish. Is there a time to stand up for our rights? Is there a time to be angry? Absolutely. Jesus demonstrated that on the temple steps. But in normal, everyday conversations and relationships, there's just no room for some of the things that we do in the name of God's love.
I agree. That is so good. I agree. I don't think that change is going to happen from a megaphone or a platform. Like, it can, but I think the more powerful position is those heart-to-heart relationships and these heart-to-heart conversations. It happens on a personal level. And that's something I feel like God's really been speaking to my heart over the last year, is that it's not the big name evangelists and musicians, and yes, they can have an impact, but I really truly believe what God's doing in this hour, he's raising up the vagabonds, the castaways, the harlots, the prostitutes. Like, he is calling them out of their pits of despair and positioning them for more. He is positioning them to lead the charge and these are people that you wouldn't expect, right? These are the ones who have discounted and discredited themselves because they don't feel worthy. They don't feel valuable. They feel forgotten. They feel unseen. And God is showing them right now that, no, you're not forgotten. You are worthy. You are still my masterpiece. You are still beautiful. And I think it's going to be I cannot wait. I am so excited for what he's doing, what he's releasing in this earth. I haven't seen any evidence of it yet, but I can feel it in my spirit. I can feel it in my bones. And that leads us right into this book project that we just completed. That is so exciting and impactful, but I want to touch on these people that God is preparing right now. I think a lot of them have a sense, or have had in the past a sense, that people who are doing big things, people who are making an impact and changing the world, they must be special. They must have some special talents or special connections, or maybe they were born with a silver spoon in their mouths. And I've been there myself, right? Like, I have felt that, like, I will never have the impact that I want to have because I've made all these bad choices. God's taught me different since then. But we get this idea that we could never accomplish the things that we want to accomplish, or the vision that God has placed in our hearts. So my question for you is, have you always had a clear vision? Have you always known where God's leading you? Have you always known who you are in Christ? Have you always been this connected to pursuing that vision, or has it been a journey?
Definitely has been a journey. I grew up in the church. I've always known that Jesus loved me. I just didn't know what it looked like to have a relationship with Jesus. I didn't know that he wanted to walk with me, not just every day, but every moment of every day. So, and I think about this a lot because I was raised to be independent and to do things myself and help. Nope, I've got this. And I've been that way with Jesus for, first of all, for many years. But He's teaching me, one lesson at a time. And more recently, I've just really learned to surrender and to know that he's there for everything in my life. And so no, it's definitely been a journey. And that's part of what I am trying to do now, is to help people find the ways to speed up that journey so they don't have to struggle for 30, 40 years to, trying to do it all themselves, and to learn to trust Jesus. So, but yeah, it's absolutely been a journey. And honestly, the biggest challenges in my life are in my life have been the challenges. Those challenges are what have accelerated the journey and helped me to realize that I don't have to do it on my own. God's got this.
Yeah, and he really does love broken vessels, right?
Mm.
Those are the ones like that become masterpieces, and the ones that become the most priceless, right? I know I felt like a broken vessel for the longest time, and I felt unworthy. I felt like I had totally screwed up my life. I had totally screwed up my kids' lives. Um, and I think a lot of it was, back to that clarity, confidence, and courage piece. I didn't have clarity. I didn't know who I was. At one point, God even spoke to me like, you're a chameleon. You're trying to blend in, to fit in, when I've created you to stand out, to be set apart. And I was like, whoa, like that was a complete wake up call for me. So, what would you say to someone who maybe is in the trenches right now, who they have this sense that there's a greater purpose, there's something more that God's calling them to, but they just aren't sure how to go about grabbing hold of it?
A couple of things are coming up for me. First of all, and I think it's important to say this, because one of the things that I find about our book, Whispers from God, is, but one of the things about it is the diversity of the women that came to collaborate on this project. And we come from so many different backgrounds and so many different perspectives. And I think it's important for people to realize that because of that diversity, we will be able to draw different people in. Because when you were talking about that feeling of being a broken vessel and just God not being able to use, I've never been there. Yes, I've had things happen to me in my life that, gave me pause. I stumbled. I knew that I had sinned, those things, but I never ever felt that I wasn't worthy. And I think that, my pregnancy early on, and that knowing that God walked through that with me helped me to give me the confidence to do some of the things in my life. So, am I guilty of having, being comparative in the workplace and doing, I mean, yes, I'm very, very sinful doing all the things, but I don't know, other than those moments of insecurity and things like that, I never felt like my life was broken and that God couldn't use me. I just didn't realize that he wanted to. And so I think that there are people out there that are in a place where, again, they're like where I was. And it was like, I had a great career. I had a beautiful life. I mean, all the things came together, with my blended family. I had, just incredible life. But there was just something missing. I had that deep longing in my soul that God had more for me. And once I started on the path of, and of course I have a whole story about why I went this direction and then this direction. And, I mean, truly was a journey. But once I got on that path, and you have to follow the breadcrumbs, and you go where he leads you, even when it doesn't make sense. But as you look back, and I love my friend Marty, again, just said this in our podcast episode yesterday. It was like, it's a Steve Jobs quote about how you can connect the dots looking backwards, but you can't looking forward. That is so true. Looking back, I can see all the different directions that God led me and how I can use each one of those unseemingly connected things to come together to make sense of where he's leading me now. But it's one of those things where if you have a sense that there's more to life, God is drawing you out and trying to draw you in for what's the next step. It may mean a move to a new career, a new job, or just a new hobby. I don't know. But when you start plugging into him and getting in his word and praying and listening to him, that's when you'll start to realize where he's going. And it may not be a change at all, other than a change in your heart and a change at the way you look at where he's using you, where he has you right now. We almost always are exactly where we need to be, unless we've just been completely disobedient. And he'll even use that. But he can use us no matter where we are. And a really, to me, a great example of that in my life is I left my great career one time. I thought that I needed to go take this other job because it was going to be, I would be able to make more money in less hours. And it was actually exactly the opposite. I made less money. I was working longer hours. I wasn't able to make the difference that I thought I could and all of that. And fortunately, 14 months later, I was able to go back to my other job with a new perspective. But what's so beautiful about that is God introduced me to a woman in that small window of opportunity who became a lifetime friend. And I was able to be there with her and walk the walk where her husband died of cancer. And I'm sorry, I didn't realize I could. I didn't even realize that it was going to impact me that way. But the husband died of cancer in that. I mean, he got it and died during that window of opportunity. And I was able to walk that walk with her. And I know that that's the reason I was there. Yeah, I learned some other things, but he will take us and he will use us if we allow him to do so. Long answer for a quick question, but
that is so beautiful. And I think it's powerful as well. Like when we settle into that place of what God has shown me, I call it stop, drop, and roll. And STOP is an acronym for surrender, trust, obey, position, and prepare. When we come into that heart posture, nothing is wasted anyway.
right.
But even more so when we are in that position of surrender and trust and obey, he can use even the most mundane experiences to teach us incredible life lessons. And just your obedience in being in that space of, I'm sure maybe felt like limbo, like, I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what's going on, but God opened that up for you to be able to walk through that with your dear friend that she may not have had anybody else, right? Had you not been obedient, it just really makes you stop and think, like, what if I hadn't surrendered and obeyed in that moment, even though it made no sense to me? I had no idea why I was doing it or where God was taking me, but it gave you the space to just be.
Yeah.
Which is beautiful.
Yeah. And of course, when all of that happened, and as I'm sitting here thinking, he didn't die until after I had gone back to my other job. But when all of that happened, even though I was in my early part of my journey, I wasn't at that place where I was constantly stopping saying, okay, God, is this you? Is this, I wasn't using the tools that I now know are available to have him help me make good decisions. So I was making decisions based on worldly things, and he used that anyway. And that's what I think is really beautiful, is that he's with us all the time, whether we acknowledge it or not. And he will use the tools that he needs to get us where he needs us to be. The thing is that the difference between the Vona that went ahead and did that for worldly values and the Vona who would have done it probably the same thing today is the peace that I have in my heart, knowing that I'm in tune with where he wants me to be. There was a lot more stress and indecision and just angst from why I had made this bad decision back then. And had I come at it from this place of peace that I might now, it would have been an entirely different journey.
Yeah, I agree. And I think for me, that's this book project that we just completed. like that was therapeutic for me, because I did, before I went through the process of actually writing what was in my heart, my experiences, there, a lot of it was pent up inside me, right? And that process of writing it, getting out on paper, was so therapeutic and so healing. And I resisted it for such a long time because I was like, I don't want to do that part of the project, right? I like to coordinate and I like to get people together and build community. That writing process was like, I wrestled for a long time on that piece. But I want to know from you, it's been such a blessing to work with you in this project. You have such a wisdom and such experience that has been so helpful, so supportive, such a blessing, really. But what inspired you about this book project? Um, what inspired you about the vision behind it?
I was and am inspired by the opportunity to show women, although I really believe it's anyone, that despite kind of what we were just talking about, despite whatever we're doing in our lives, God uses both the joys and the tragedies. And even like one of my stories is so mundane, but it was so amazing that God used that little story about a lost watch to show me that he cared enough to show me where to go back and find it, right? But I mean, we have that. I mean, truly, if anybody's going to get the prize for the well, how did this story get here, it might be that one, all the way to traumas and abuse and great loss. And God is with us through all of those experiences in life. And for me to be a part of a project that might show someone that God is using them and their experiences, the good, the bad, and everything in between, is so important because he is there for us. And our world is so broken and people are devastated by what's going on. They're full of anxiety and they're in grief and depression. And it doesn't have to be that way. God is just back there whispering to us, saying, you've got this. We've got this. It's okay. It will be okay. We have huge tragedy happened in our community recently. And all I can think about is praying that if they don't already know God, that someone, maybe me, maybe someone else, will show them that he can use this for his glory. And he probably, most likely, is bringing someone into the fold that would have never had anything to do with him because they now know they need him to survive this. And he will do that time and time again.
Yeah, those local tragedies are so heart-wrenching. Can be. I'm so sorry that you guys are going through that. We had one here locally recently as well. And it really can either pull a community together or completely tear it apart. So I will be praying that yours will be drawn together, that they will see the love of God through the experience. I do remember the watch story. I remember you reaching out to me and saying, this one just really doesn't feel like it's really all that powerful or impactful. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, it is. It is so, like, God cares about the little things, right? And we need to be reminded of that because it's so easy to forget, especially when, I don't know about you, but I have a tendency to forget to talk to him sometimes unless I really, really need a favor, right?
Yeah.
But we need to remember he cares about those little things too. And I've gotten to the point now where my hope is I live in constant conversation with him. I used to believe that prayer was something you did when you went to church and you went down to the altar and that's the only time you can talk to God because that's the only place he's accessible. Not anymore. I talk to him when I'm washing the dishes. I talk to him when I'm working in the garden. Like, I want that to be constant conversation and communication with him. So the watch story is definitely powerful. I want to wrap up because I know you need to get going. What is the message that you hope the audience will take away from what you've shared in Letters to My Daughters?
Just that he's got this. Doesn't matter what you're going through. From my experience, everything from a child who was injured in a skateboarding accident to my unplanned pregnancy, which was really my first story in the sequence of the books, to my breast cancer, to losing a loved one. All of those scenarios, the bottom line is God's got this. He wants to carry us through that. I mean, think back to the footsteps in the sand. God, why did you leave me? I didn't leave you, child. I carried you. He will every time. That's really it. He's just right there, longing for us to just reach out to him.
Amen. Amen. And sometimes we're in the darkest place and we feel like we're all alone. And it's then if you just settle your heart, settle your mind, close your eyes, I bet you can feel him sitting there holding you with his arms wrapped around you like that. I like to imagine when I'm in a really dark place and nothing makes sense. I like to imagine myself crawling up into his lap and just curling up and letting him hold me. And that is such a peaceful place to be. So yeah, I love all your stories. And we have so many amazing stories. We have 9 authors who have come and shared their stories of heartache and trauma and loss, but they're also of hope and redemption. And I'm just so excited for this book to get out into the public. How can the audience connect with you to learn more about your vision or your work, Vona?
I think the best place is just vonajohnson.com, VONA, 1N, vonajohnson.com. That's kind of where all of the different things that I have to offer are made available. And if somebody wants to just email me at Vona, VONA, at vonajohnson.com. I'd love to hear from anybody. And I'd love to hear what you're going through. If there's any way that I can help you with that, it would be my honor.
Okay. Thank you so much for spending some time with me here today, Vona. I always love our conversations. We could go on for days, I think, but I know you have other things going on, so we will wrap it up for today. Well, my dear Kingdom Culture Revolutionaries and Accelerators, what an incredible journey we've been on together today. As we draw near the end of this exhilarating episode, I want to remind you that the adventure doesn't stop here. Oh no, it's just beginning. Make sure to check out the show notes for this episode, where you'll find valuable resources, links to further exploration, and recommendations that will fuel your kingdom pursuit. Simply scroll down and let the treasures of wisdom continue to pour into your life. To stay connected with us and dive even deeper into the realms of Kingdom Culture Revolution, I invite you to visit our ever-expanding website at www.kingdomculturerevolution.com. There, you'll discover a wealth of additional content, captivating blog posts, exclusive interviews, and a community of passionate revolutionaries just like you. Remember, my friends, this revolution is not a solo mission. It's a movement, a collective roar that echoes throughout the cosmos. So I encourage you to join us on our social media platforms, where we continue the conversation, share empowering quotes, and create a space for you to connect with other Kingdom Culture revolutionaries. Now, take a moment to catch your breath and let the fire within you burn bright. You are destined for greatness, called to be a beacon of light in every sphere of influence. As we part ways for now, remember to keep seeking truth, embracing authenticity, and allowing God's kingdom to flow through you in every decision, interaction, and endeavor. Thank you for being a part of this incredible movement. Together, we are changing the world, one heart, one mind, and one sphere of influence at a time. Until we meet again, dear Kingdom Warriors and Watchmen, stay ignited, keep roaring, and always remember, you are an unstoppable force for God's kingdom. This is your host, Angela Linville, signing off. Until next time.